bloodlines. It is an ideology that is completely antithetical to American values and basic human dignity. In California, we have seen caste discrimination across industries, including technology, education, construction, restaurants, domestic work, and medicine. It has included bullying, harassment, bias, wage theft, sexual harassment, housing discrimination, and even trafficking. That is why the passage of SB 403 is so critical and is such a significant step forward in California's fight against discrimination. Once again, on behalf of SALDEF, we're honored to support this effort for equal rights and social justice as part of this coalition. I'll now turn it over to Thun Mori, Executive Director of Equality Labs, who tirelessly led our coalition and advocacy efforts. Thun Mori on. I think Thun Mori will be joining in just 1 minute, so we will wait.
I'm here.
Oh, you're here, wonderful. I was just doing your introduction, Thun Mori, and once again, Thun Mori, Executive Director of Equality Labs, who tirelessly led our coalition and advocacy efforts. Without her incredible leadership, none of this would be possible. So I'll turn it over to Thun Mori.
Thank you for that. And it's such a pleasure to be here with so many friends and fellow organizers. Like we really have become quite an amazing family in terms of all of the folks that have been here and stood so tirelessly on this issue. And I just want to emphasize for the people who are tuning in, the incredible organizing that led to this assembly victory. Because again, one of the reasons why I keep saying it's like a win for the ages is that if you knew what we were up against, like political violence, from the disinformation, the open bigotry, there was times when we would go into the Sacramento Capitol building and we weren't sure if we were going to be assaulted or targeted. That's how vicious the opponents were. And I think the story of this win is the story of how people's power defeated disinformation and bigotry. And the Californian Coalition for Caste Equity was a remarkable coalition of organizations from San Diego County all the way to Shasta County that came not only from all dimensions of the South Asian context, but really all dimensions of the Californian context, whether it was our leaders and our fellow capacity builders at TechEquity Collaborative, to the ACLU, the NAACP, the Me Too movement, to the California Labor Fed. We had everybody on our side because it's common sense that no one in California wants to have significant discrimination in our state. And the fact that we're clarifying the law, the fact that we worked with such unity and such peacefulness and with such purpose, flanked by the law. You know, the fact that we had the American Bar Association, the South Asian Bar Association, the National Asian American Pacific Bar Association, the California Employment Lawyers Association, and tens of others, legal associations come forward. The lawfulness of this is so profound. So it was very funny. One of the chants that we had in the crowd today was, "Jay Beam, I have a dream." And that connection was really about not only our commitment to caste abolition, but that this path was paved with the battles that were won for us by the civil rights movements and Black leaders and movements. And so we are so honored to be that next wave of civil rights movement, and just so profound. And just to give some people some stats, our coalition did over 700 meetings in order to get this win. And that included tens of thousands of emails, phone calls. We had the first historic caravan that went from San Diego County all the way to Shasta County. Plus we did multiple visits all the way across the offices. So it's an honor to be here with so many of our collaborators, because again, we couldn't have done it without each and every one of our organizations. Each of us carried a piece. And this really represents a new vision for what South Asian progressive political power looks like in the state. And I'm sure all of us are going to take this forward and profound ways. But tonight we sleep and celebrate, and then we go to the final step. So thank you, and I pass it back to you, Kieran.
Sure. I think the next person we'll hear from is Shahira. And thank you again, Thanmori, for your comments and again for your leadership.
Hi everyone, this is Shahira. My pronouns are she and her. And thanks to Maury and Karen for your words. I am Punjabi from the Ravidasiya community specifically, and wanted to share a little bit more about my story with caste discrimination. I was born and raised in California. Specifically in the East Bay, and have experienced caste discrimination in education as well as the workplace, which are both places that are very common grounds for where caste discrimination unfortunately occurs. And one of my first instances with caste discrimination was actually in high school. So it was a very difficult time to navigate through as, you know, as a young adolescent, just developing and trying to navigate life in general. I had the added stress of caste. And for me, like, my parents never talked about caste or anything like that. They never told me about, you know, my caste, about us being Dalit or caste oppressed, until I was actually bullied in high school for it. I was severely bullied and harassed by some of my good friends, and how that, you know, first kind of occurred, or the instance came into my life, was I remember specifically I was actually at one of my best friend's house, who was also Punjabi and Sikh, and I remember going to her house at the time, and we were, you know, just having a casual conversation in her room, and then I remember she stepped out to talk to her mom in the kitchen, who was just a few steps away, but I could, you know, overhear the conversation, and I remember the words that her mom had said to her daughter, or my friend at the time. She said, "Oh, you know, that friend that's in your room is a chamar." And for those of you, most of you probably don't know, but chamar is a casteist slur that's used typically by dominant caste people to demean people of my caste. Chamar is the formal name for my caste, which is a leather maker, the occupation in India that people from my caste hold. And it's you know, it's specifically and intended to be used by dominant caste people to basically you know, treat us like shit, excuse my language, and demean us as caste oppressed people and Dalit people. So it was that moment was a very very, you know, hard moment, because I remember it really changed my life, and there was just a huge turning point for me at that moment, where the next day I went to school, and I remember I just remember all my friends like not talking to me, and I was just so sad, so depressed, because I was basically excluded from my whole friend group, who was actually pretty much all Punjabi and South Asian. So I know my friend at the time had told her, our whole group of friends, excuse me, about my caste, and I remember one of them actually calling me like dirty, because I was gonna sit at the lunch table with them one time, and then they were like, "Oh, why don't you go sit in the other table, because, you know, because you're dirty." And it you know, when I heard that, again, it's, you know, severe bullying, and hearing hurtful words like that really impacted my mental health. And caused me to have some, horrible anxiety, depression, and things I'm all dealing with now too because of the severe bullying. And the reason they called me dirty was because of my caste, and I was just considered, impure and spiritually impure, as the caste system deems us Dalits or caste oppressed people as dirty or spiritually impure. And it was a moment and multiple times and instances where I just continued to get harassed and bullied for the next 2 years of high school. And I really wish I had a means of being able to report it, or even tell someone about it, whether it be a teacher or anyone that could support me at the time. But honestly, I did not feel comfortable to be able to do that in any way. And at the time, I wish I wish there was something like SB 403. I wish there was some type of protections or law or anything implemented even within the school policy to be able to protect me, but I didn't feel comfortable to be able to report it. And I know there's a lot of kids, students in academia that are facing this actively right now, and it's happening. It's rampant. There's a reason why the California State University and a lot of other major universities have added caste as a protected category, because we've seen that caste discrimination is actively happening, within universities, within schools. And the reason why I obviously share my story is because when I share it, I'm doing it not only to raise awareness that caste discrimination exists and it's happened to me, but also that there are students that are not able to speak out because they're afraid of getting retaliated, or they're hiding their caste, and in essence, like in the closet, because they can't be public about their caste because of how much violence we face and how much retaliation and bullying, harassment, etc., that we're subjected to just as caste oppressed people, as Dalit people, to even be out about our caste. So I don't want any child, student to ever have to go through what I went through. That's why SB 403 is so important, and we're in such a historical time, especially today, as the vote for the assembly floor has passed for SB 403, and it's it was a collective effort of so much advocacy that was done by so many caste oppressed people and community, especially the Ravidasya community, which was really led by Ben Mori and so many other great leaders like Sana, who's also Muslim and caste oppressed, and also has faced caste discrimination. So it's been amazing to help and witness all of this amazing momentum and advocacy that's been happening around the bill, because it's so important. And we really need to all understand that this is just a simple civil rights and human rights bill. Another instance of caste discrimination I actually also faced was in the workplace, specifically in the tech industry. So I have a formal background in business technology. I graduated with my degree with a business concentration in information systems with a business admin degree. And I landed my first tech job post-grad a couple years ago. And I remember my supervisor was South Asian Punjabi, and he actually started questioning my caste background because my last name is Kaur, which is the common last name for Punjabi Sikh women, and Singh is for Punjabi men, because our God actually abolished the caste system, but caste discrimination still exists in our religion. That's why we had created the Ravidasya temple, was because we were facing caste discrimination even within places of religion, places of worship. And I remember just being interrogated, intimidated by this specific supervisor And he just straight up asked me, like, what's your real last name? Where are your parents from in India? What like village does your dad belong to? And I'm like literally born and raised in California, so I honestly didn't even really know. But just the fact that he questioned me in such a way where I, obviously felt super uncomfortable, and I didn't have a means of being able to report it because HR would have told me that, there isn't a law that protects you against this. We don't know what this is. So that's why bills like SB 403 are so important, so that they can, we can be protected by the law. I can feel comfortable to report to HR, and HR would know and understand what I'm talking about because it would be protected under the law, and we would have, more training and awareness and knowledge on it in general. And again, I wish at the time I had something like that to be able to report it in some way, to actually feel like, my workplace was safe. And places like the workplace and education are supposed to be safe spaces for everyone, and we need to ensure that all people, including caste oppressed people, are protected in these spaces. So yeah, I mean, SB 403 is historical. We're literally making history as we speak. We are continuing to make history. We made history today, thankfully, with all the community, our allies, and everyone that's really stood with us throughout this bill and movement in general. It's we're creating so much power together, and it's been just absolutely amazing to just see everyone really coming together and standing for us. As a caste oppressed person, it is very validating, and feels good that there's so many people standing with us in this important fight for caste equity, and that we have gotten one step closer to the finish line. And I believe we can do it. I believe our movement is powerful, and I'm just thankful to everyone who supported us, and of course, to Mori and all the amazing leaders from the Ravidasya community as well, who are very dear to my heart too. So thank you so much for listening. Then I'll pass it over to Karen.
Sure. Thank you so much, Shahira, and thank you so much for sharing your story. It's so incredibly important. I think we have one question in the chat. The question was, how confident are you that the Senate will pass this bill and Governor Newsom will sign it into law? I would say the coalition is quite confident. As you heard Mori discuss earlier, we have done tremendous grassroots advocacy, from calls to emails to meetings to caravans. And I think, despite the misinformation around this bill, in terms of, understanding what it truly is meant to do, I think we've been able to really speak up and speak out on why this is so important. And essentially, the crux of it is, and I think Shahira's really illustrated that in her remarks, is that, identifying caste discrimination as a type of discrimination really helps people that are experiencing this give voice to and an avenue to look at ways to prevent it, to address it. And so I do think that, there's Mori's back, so she'll probably answer, but I think I was saying similarly, we are very confident. Then Mori, would you like to respond?
Oh, sure. Yeah, we're extremely confident because, again, this is a question about the law. And this is, Karen, you're from the Sikh American Legal Defense Education Fund. And fundamentally, I have never seen a civil rights bill have this many legal associations connected to it out of the South Asian community. To have the American Bar Association, the South Asian Bar Association, the National Asian American Pacific Bar Association, the Black Bar in San Diego, the California Employment Lawyers Association, the Human Relations Legal Association. I mean, we had over close to like 20 legal associations come on board. And the reason why is we are not changing the law, we are clarifying existing protections. And so I think that what we saw in the Senate was widespread support for this bill. And the Senate reconciliation vote is a rather just technical kind of function. So we don't see any problems there. And, you know, California, in terms of the governor, and California, we lead the way in terms of civil rights. And I think that, again, this win is so pivotal because, again, it shows, it's a very recent example of the power of grassroots organizing and cross-issue, cross-racial, interfaith organizing that is required to defeat disinformation and bigotry. You know, our coalition faced so much political violence from our opponents. You know, literally, when we had to do advocacy, we had to check in with the sheriffs because we were worried that some of our leaders would be targeted, including myself. But despite that intimidation, despite the disinformation, because even on the floor, you know, Assemblyman Gallagher chose to repeat disinformation that was inaccurate. He said several falsehoods that were there. But I think that's what I'm saying, is that the conversation of civil rights is so charged today. And, you know, it's unfortunate that opponents choose to traffic in political violence and disinformation and bigotry. But ultimately, this bill protects them as well. And our version, you know, our hope with this movement is that we are a movement that's rooted in love and peace and unity. And our ultimate goal is reconciliation. But our goal to get to be able to have those conversations of reconciliation and healing, we must first start with remedying the discrimination. And that's where this bill really starts. But every indication that we've heard, Brian, is that legislators are really excited to see this bill pass. And it's quite exciting to really be able to take it forward. And, you know, we'll get the final bill count today, Kieran. Like, basically, people will be kind of doing their final bill input, so we'll kind of see what the final vote is. But you know, this is such a respectable win for the assembly and everyone. We've literally been getting calls from all around the world because people see this not just a win for California, but they see it as a win for the United States and around the world, because caste oppressed people have demanded a remedy to this centuries-old violence. And not only did the California legislature listen, they confirmed that caste exists in the state. Even people who are opposed to the bill said caste discrimination shouldn't happen, which is an acknowledgement that it's happening in the state. So I'm just proud of every one of the organizers and organizations that came forward, because there were some groups that never even worked on the issue of caste that braved that political violence and bigotry. And so when people saw it, when people, you know, when our opponents revealed the extents and kind of some of the not appropriate tactics that they did, you know, I think they felt sorry, you know. And I think, again, our goal is we want healing, we want reconciliation, and this bill protects everyone. So we hope our opponents will come to our side and learn from us and build with us, because ultimately this bill protects everyone.
Then, then Maury, I was just going to say there's two other questions in the chat that I think you would be probably the best person to answer. One is, are you concerned that more than 24 legislators just decided to abstain from the voting for the bill today? And the second one is, what other states are you looking to get this type of legislation passed next?
So I think that a lot of people have not really experienced what it is to do advocacy. It's very common for people to be in and out of the floor. That's why we have to see what the final vote count will be later tonight. And as I said, we had an amazing win. We only needed 41, and we have upwards of 50 and still growing, you know. So I would say let's just wait till we get to the end of the day to find out what the vote count is. And, you know, we're not going to reveal, we have to keep some things close to our chest, right, Kieran? Like, we're not going to say where we're going to go next. But I think what is really important to know is that by winning California, we are winning the 5th largest economy in the world. And we are changing the place where we have been born and lived and raised in. And hopefully this will be a call for other people to, you know, cast out discrimination and really join in the healing that we're hoping to lead with the Californians for Caste Equity Coalition.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, then, Maury. I'm just looking if there's any other questions. So I think we've answered most of the questions. Amrita, is there? Oh, we're good to wrap up. Okay, wonderful. Well, again, I just want to thank everyone for joining us. I think you really got to hear today. Particularly thankful to Maury and Shahira for sharing their perspectives, which I think we really do want to center, and for Maury's leadership. If you have any questions, I believe everyone got copies of the press release. So we certainly are happy to answer any additional questions that you may have. I'm just looking if there's any additional questions in the chat before we close.
Recording stopped.
Wonderful. And again, I just wanted to say, today was a really, really, monumentous occasion, I think, for the coalition in seeing the passage of this bill in the Assembly. As I mentioned, we joined forces, and I think you heard that also from Maury, a really widespread coalition, some who have just began to engage in this issue, but really braved some difficult opposition, in some cases, unfortunately violent and hateful opposition, to really push this forward, understanding what it means for our community and for California in general. So we're very appreciative. I think we have we're now, of course, waiting for the Senate and for Governor Newsom to sign. So we hope to see that soon. And we encourage him to certainly do that swiftly. So with that, I will close out. And again, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today.